Hi, Bulldogs. Today our lesson is on the history of limited government in Europe. You have two objectives or learning targets today. The first one is I can describe the history of limited government in Europe, and I can define the European Union and describe its purpose. So before we even get into the history of limited government, let's go ahead and review two very important terms. We're going to review the term unlimited government, okay? And this is a country that is ruled by one person with total power. So as you can see these pictures over here, there's one person in charge and there are no limits on their authority. In other words, they have absolute power. They can do and run the government however they like, whether the people agree or not. And this is what most governments used to look like in Europe until we start seeing limited forms of government, which is what we're talking about today. So reviewing limited government, remember in a limited government, everyone, including the leader, must obey the laws. Okay, no one is above the law. Everyone has to follow. And we follow constitutions and laws that limit power so that leaders cannot take advantage of the people. And this is really the focus of our lesson today. So let's go ahead and start. We're going to be looking at a timeline that looks like this. We'll be talking about Athens, Rome. We'll talk about the Magna Carta in England, the Bill of Rights in England, rights of man and citizen in France, and then we'll talk about the creation of the UN, the United Nations, which involves many countries, and the European Union as well, known as the EU. So let's go ahead and start. We're going to start from the bottom up because the bottom part represents the first examples of limited government up until we get more current. So let's go ahead and begin with Athens, okay, democracy in Athens. So democracy in Athens, which is Greece, in the 6th century BC, like I said, up until this, most rulers had absolute powers, but Athens changes all this. Athens, Greece is credited with being the first known democracy. And more specifically, they are a direct democracy, okay, which means all citizens voted on all issues. Citizens participated directly in the actions of government. Now, let's take a side note here and we'll say that it says all citizens, but there were some limits, okay? Citizens were considered men over the age of 13 that were property owners. So those people were allowed to participate in that direct democracy. Now, moving on to Rome, the Roman Republic, we see that things will begin to change a little bit in the Roman Republic in 27 BC. The Roman Republic is a period in which Rome existed as a republic. The leaders of Rome knew they wanted democracy, okay, just like Greece had, but their population was much bigger than Athens. Okay, Athens had a smaller population, which made direct democracy work better, but Rome's population was much bigger, and they knew that they'd never be able to get every citizen to participate in government. So a republic is born. In a republic, the citizens elect representatives to run the government for them. These representatives were responsible to the people that elected them, and the people still had power, but now it was handed off to a group of citizens that could act on their behalf, much like we have today. Okay, we can elect people, we can elect representatives, and they will go run government and speak to the government and try and pass things that we agree with because they work for us who elected them. The next one we're going to look at, so we've done Athens, we've done Rome. Now we're looking at the Magna Carta, which was signed in England in 1215. And what's important about the Magna Carta is it establishes the rule of law, the rule of law. Okay, so basically what that means is nobody is above the law, not even the king. Okay, there has to be limits to the king's power, and this document establishes that. Okay, everyone must obey the law. The next one we're going to talk about is the English Bill of Rights, 1689, and this is also England. The English Bill of Rights takes this a little bit further in the idea of limited government. It outlines specific constitutional and civil rights. Okay, so don't forget, a constitution is a document that explains how our government works or how a government works, and even lets you know about the laws and people's rights. So that's what the English Bill of Rights did in 1689. And it gave Parliament power over the monarchy. And if you don't remember what Parliament is the lawmakers, okay, the lawmakers in England. like our Congress, they have Parliament, and now Parliament has power over the monarchy, the king or the queen. The king and queen, right, just based on what we said, can no longer rule with absolute power, right? Thanks to the Magna Carta, they have to follow the rules now too, and Parliament has some power over them. Next one we're going to look at, we've done those, is Rights of Man and Citizen. This happens in France, 1789. And it's probably one of the most important papers that came out of France's revolution, the French Revolution. And this document explains the rights that people had, such as freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. And it also talked about the role of government, how government works for the people, and people really are what give the government power to rule. And they also talked about a separation of powers, which is having different branches that had different powers and different responsibilities to keep government balanced. Now, the next one we're going to be looking at, as you can see, we're going through this timeline. Next one we're talking about is creation of the UN after World War II in 1945. So the UN stands for the United Nations, and like I said, this happens after World War II. The UN is an international organization of 193 countries from around the world, and it was established in 1945. What this group agreed to do was work together to prevent and end wars. Okay, some of their main focuses or goals were to work to improve social conditions by promoting international cooperation, in other words, countries cooperating together, economic development, okay, helping countries develop strong economies, taking care of public health, environmental conservation, okay, and human rights. Now, the members of the UN are supposed to cooperate so that they can prevent future wars. They don't want to have any other wars. They want to make sure that these countries are cooperating peacefully, and if they have any differences, they settle it diplomatically. In other words, they will talk to one another before going to war or doing something by force. All right, last one. We're talking about the creation of the EU, which stands for the European Union. This was created in 1951. The European Union was formed to bring together the countries of Europe. Okay, so this is specifically about Europe, and it is an economic and political union of 27 countries in Europe, and their focus or their aim is to promote peace, well-being, sustainable development, and an economic and monetary union. In other words, they're going to cooperate in all of these things, being peaceful, trying to develop economically. They even share a common currency, which is called the euro. Okay? The EU helps its member countries with issues such as trade, security, and the rights of citizens. So as you can tell, in each one of these timelines, the idea of limited government just kind of keeps going and building on, right? Starting from Athens to Rome, to England, to France, all the way to after World War II and beyond, right? So this idea of limited government really begins with Greece and continues to this day in most countries, not only here, but of course in Europe. All right, Bulldogs, hope you have a great day.